Welcome to part 2 of our videos on JavaScript variables. Let's start off by part 2 by reviewing a couple of things. Now I wrote this out in my summary here, and I'm just going to read and comment on a few things, and then we'll get back into code quickly. So we know that variables are virtual containers to hold information, and you know that we need to create variables to hold information because for anything to happen on a computer, really, it has to be placed into memory. And you remember, memory is RAM. That's why when you buy more memory for your computer, the computer runs faster because it's able to stick stuff in memory, and the more stuff in memory, the faster it goes. You see, in the old days, with more primitive programming languages, a programmer had to manually stick the information, the data, into specific spots in memory. This is a long and tedious process that brings a whole new meaning to hyper anal nerd. Okay, that was badly delivered, but you have to understand programming was really a much more geeky thing in the past when you didn't have the ability to create variables on the fly as you can with JavaScript. So you got to understand, when you use the var keyword in JavaScript, basically you're automating the process. Variables automate the process for you. You just create the variable and stick information in it. JavaScript takes care of all the dirty details. And of course, to create a variable in JavaScript, you need to use the keyword var followed by the name you want to give it. So let's jump back into some code. So we've seen this before. So let's look at a few things. Now, you notice here in my examples, let me just organize this code a little bit better. I created the variables first, and then down here, I assigned them. Now, this is like a very old school way. Well, it's not an old school way. This is kind of an encumbering way of doing it. You could actually just do this. You can declare a variable, and when you use the var keyword and you give it a name, that's, you create a variable, nerds call that declaring a variable. So when you declare a variable, you can do it at the same time as you give it a value. So let's go first name here. And last name, of course. So you see, I've minimized the amount of code we needed, and just to make sure everything works fine, we reload. When we see that alert pop up, as we did here, we know our code's working pretty good. Another reason why we know our code is working pretty good, let me just remove that. We're gonna bang boom, Internet Explorer displays our error for us. Okay, and we get no alert box because the code screwed up along the way, right? So we'll put that back in. Everything should work fine. There we go. So to get back to it, as you can see, you can declare a variable, and declaring a variable just basically means use the var keyword and add a name for the variable. And you can give it a value on one line. You don't have to do it on 2 lines as I did before. Let's look at variable names. Now, you notice when I created a variable, I didn't have a space like this. I can't have var first name because as far as JavaScript's concerned, this space makes it, well, it screws it up. Let me load this. We got our error again, right? And, well, actually, let's look at that error a little bit more closely. See, line 14, character 11, error expected, semicolon. So let me look at that again. You see, when you have a space, line 14, it's expecting a semicolon here because when you have a space, that tells JavaScript figures you're starting something new, could be declaring another variable or whatnot. So it's expecting this. But the fact of the matter is, what you should take away from this is that you don't want a space in your variable names. It has to be either touching, no space, or you can use something like an underscore. That works too. Variables can have lowercase and uppercase. This all works. But what I would suggest, you keep it all lowercase. You can start variables with text, and you can start it out with no numbers. See, that's not going to work. JavaScript doesn't want numbers for the beginning of a variable. So we'll just refresh that again. Bing. See, line 14, character 5. Line 14, character 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, it doesn't like that. No numbers to begin your variables. You probably can do this. See, you can put a number after the first letter, but your first letter of your variable names have to be text. Okay, it can't be numbers, it can't be special symbol. Well, I guess it could be a dollar sign. It can't be that symbol, can't be this symbol. Just to be safe, when you create a variable, just make sure it starts with a letter. Make sure there's no spaces in between them and no special weird characters, because that will cause problems as well. So yeah, if you want to create spaces between your variable names, like first name, so it's clear, you can put an underscore, and away you go. Yes, these are nerdy details, I know, but I'm trying to make your life easier. Another thing you can do, you notice I put them on separate lines. You can put them all on one line if you want to. A little harder to read. Let's see, we'll just launch this. Oh, we got a problem. First name undefined. Let's go OK. It's because the alert, see, the alert is looking for first name without an underscore, right? And because I put in an underscore, this is now a different variable name than this. So to solve that error that we were having before, just go first name. Let's see, make sure last name, okay. Let's save that, reload, rock and roll. All right, so you notice how I was able to declare the variables all in one line. Now it's important that I have the semicolon after each variable creation or declaration. Makes no difference. Now, see, I don't need to have a space. I can have it all squished up because when JavaScript sees the semicolon, that's like a period. So it knows that we're starting a new statement when after the period. Remember, each of these things, each of these lines is considered a statement. So that's where these semicolons come in. Now, this is cool, having it all on one line because it saves space, but it can get hard to read. So I recommend when you need to create your variables, you put them on separate lines like this. It's much cleaner, easier to read. There's a lot about variables I'm not going to cover in this first video because my goal is to get moving along as quickly as possible. So one last thing that we can do is we can actually add variables together. You notice we did it down here in the alert, but we can actually do it up here. So we can go number, let's go, oops, let me go, we'll say the last name is equal to first name plus number. Let's see what happens there. There, it worked. See? Nick and Nick 6. How did that happen? So you go, the alert is basically printing out whatever value we have stored in these variables. We have the variable first name. We added a space so it's nice and clear. And we have the variable last name. So we know last name is Mischuk. And we know the first name is, well, we know the last name was Mischuk. And but when we loaded our script here, it says Nick and Nick 6. See, that's the first. That's the second variable, Nick 6, right? Second variable, last name. So why is we declared the variable last name to have the value, to hold the value of Mischuk, but for some reason it came out as Nick 6. Why? Because we changed it here. We said, now let's take the last name variable and let's actually put in the values. The first name is Nick, plus the whatever value is being held in the variable number, which was 6, right? That's why we had Nick 6. Let's see if we change this to 22. And let's refresh that. Nick 22. Or we could change it to some text. Again, if you recall, to make it text in JavaScript, we need to put the text in between quotes like this. So let's preview that. Nick and Nick Jimmy Fish. So we learned something new now. We just learned that we can actually replace information about in variables with other information. This type of stuff comes in really handy when we're getting deeper into JavaScript. There's a lot more about JavaScript variables that we could get into, but we have enough now, more than enough now, to be able to proceed with our other practical JavaScript lessons. So we'll get back to variables at a later time.